Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about literary essays, which are essentially essays that are based on literature, whether that be a Shakespeare play or a novel. So as always, you have to prepare before you go and write your exam. So I'm going to walk you through 5 of the main aspects of a play or a novel or any form of literature that I will focus on if I know that I have to write a literary essay in my exam. So, number 1 is plot. Now, this is pretty obvious, but you have to go through your text, go through summaries, revise your plot so that you know all the sequencing of all the events. Everything regarding plot is super important when it comes to writing anything about literature. The second thing is the character name. So oftentimes it's like, oh, that guy, the protagonist, yes, but you can only do that so much in your essay. You have to know every single character's name, so all the important characters. And another thing, especially with Shakespeare texts, is the spellings of the names can be a bit complicated. So I implore you to, before your exam, go check the character list at the beginning of the novel or at the beginning of the play and just study those spellings. Also remember, you can't just know the characters' names, you got to know how they relate to the plot. The third thing, which takes a little bit of time, is themes, because this has to do with the analysis of the text. Yes, so you need to go through the text and see what sort of themes crop up. Is it war? Is it love? Is it peace? Is it conflict? All of these different themes you need to analyze and be able to write decent essays on, because it is likely that your literary essay topic will be based on a character or based on a theme. The fourth thing to remember to revise is quotes. So I recommend that you keep a notebook which you fill up with all different meaningful short quotes that you find throughout the text, because it will add so much credibility to your essay if you are able to quote directly from the text. And number 5 is vocabulary, and this is an important thing to have in every single aspect of the English exam, but specifically for literary essays because you can do so much preparation for them. So go through your text, go through your characters, see, okay, maybe this character is brave. So now go find some synonyms for brave, so that if you ever get an essay question on that specific character, you're not just saying Tom is brave, Tom is very brave. You can say different things using different vocabulary and different synonyms. So now that you've done all that preparation, the day of the exam arrives, and now you need to know what you need to do in order to get those maximum marks. So the first thing that I would highly recommend is planning. Lots of people overlook this. So as soon as they get the exam paper, they just start writing. I would definitely recommend that you plan. So my belief is if you take 5 minutes to plan, it'll actually save you time later on, because what typically happens if you just start writing without a plan is that you forget what you've written before, you forget what facts you've used, you don't have an argument, so then you take loads of time going back and trying to find out what you were actually trying to say. So an important thing here is not to take too much time, yeah? So I would say 5 to 10 minutes maximum you need to take to plan your essay. So once you have the topic, you have to be thinking about it and you have to plan in a specific way. So while you're planning, these are some things that you need to keep in mind. You have to keep in mind the structure, right? So every single literary essay has to have an introduction and it has to have a conclusion. The body needs to comprise of 2 to 3 distinct paragraphs. And when I say distinct, I mean it needs to be based on a specific point. So I don't want you talking about the same thing in every single paragraph. It needs to obviously make sense as one cohesive essay. Yes, so you need to have 3 different points, 1 per paragraph. Then this points back to your preparation, but try and include at least 2 quotes per body paragraph. So sometimes, obviously, it is a bit tricky in an exam to remember all those quotes, but if you continually look at them every single day in the preparation leading up to the exam, then you are sure to remember them. And this is also why I think planning is so important. Get those quotes down on paper. You can just do on the side of your question paper so that you don't have to keep remembering and trying to remember what they were. So just get them down as you get into the exam and you're allowed to start writing. And number 4, this is something that I always have to remind myself, is to only write what the question is asking. So sometimes you do so much preparation for a specific text and you just want to write everything down in 75 pages, all that you know about every single character and every single plot twist. But no, you have to only answer what the topic has asked you to answer. Okay, so now let's get into the actual planning. Now, this is a system that I have used since school and I still use when I write my English essays at university. It is such an amazing system and it is so helpful in planning and in getting your arguments across in your essay. And this is the PEEL method. So PEEL stands for Point, Explain, Example, Link. So I'm going to explain that a bit more now. So for every single body paragraph, you need to have a specific point. What are you trying to say? You need to then explain that point in relation to the topic. So why is this point important? Then you need to give an example from the text. And this, I think, is what some people leave out, is they might like just get too theoretical. Or alternatively, what people do is they just write about the example. They just tell me the story of the text. And that is not what you need to do in literary essays. So I'm going to show you an example later. But number 4, which is super important, is to link. So some people forget this. You need to be able, at the end of your paragraph, to do a sentence or two that links your whole paragraph to the point of the paragraph, and more importantly, to the point of the entire essay, to the topic itself. So this is how my planning tends to look before I write an essay. Obviously, it's not going to be all neat and tidy in an exam, but if you're going to do this as a preparation task before the exam, writing a practice essay, then definitely try and outline this, right? So you have your introduction, which you don't need a ton of planning for, and your conclusion. But then for every body paragraph, I'll put down my point, my explanation, my example, my link, and then some quotes that I'm going to include. So here's an example. So I've given a very simplistic topic. So this is the topic for the essay. Sarah is an exemplary role model to young girls, right? So the first thing I have to do is I have to come up with my 3 main points that I'm going to put in each of my paragraphs. So why is she an exemplary role model to young girls? Well, she's brave, she's intelligent, and she has good manners, right? So obviously your topics are not going to be as simplistic as this, but this illustrates it well. So now let's say I'm going to focus on the bravery element, yes? So this is going to be my planning for that specific paragraph. So I'm going to say, okay, my point is that she's brave, yes? Then I'm going to explain that. So I'm going to say bravery is an important quality for role models to portray, and it is a trait that young girls should aspire to attain. So obviously these are not in full sentences or anything of that sort, because this is just planning. But you see how I've tried to explain why I'm putting bravery. So it's not just random, okay, I'm talking about Sarah's bravery. No, it's bravery is an important quality for role models to portray, and that is why Sarah is an exemplary role model. So now my example. So this would be straight from the text. So I'm going to say she stands up to her bully and she isn't afraid to use her voice. Yes. So obviously yours is going to be a lot more detailed because you're going to know the text very well. This is just a random made up example. So you're going to give me an example that shows her bravery. And then lastly, you have to link it. So then now I'm linking it to the entire topic as a whole. So I'm saying Sarah's bravery characterizes her or categorizes her as an impeccable role model to young girls. Yes, so I've linked the point of my paragraph and my explanation to the main topic of the essay. So I hope that you paid attention to that, because that is super important, because now we can move on to actually writing the essay. So it's actually quite funny, but when you write a literary essay, for me, so much more effort goes into the planning, into the actual writing. So now I want to talk about the introduction. So there is a sort of formula that you can follow that works perhaps 95% of the time. And so I encourage you to utilize this sort of formula in inverted commas to try and add structure and structure and cohesiveness to your essay. So I always like to start off in, and then the author's name, so like in Shakespeare's play, and then give a bit of context that is related to the topic that you have been asked. The next sentence, you have to rephrase the topic. Do not just merely repeat the topic. You got to rephrase it and set out your argument. So if it was like Sarah is an exemplary role model, then I would set out my argument that said Sarah is an amazing role model to young girls. Yes, so I'm going to tell you my point of view from the get-go. Don't leave me in suspense. From reading your introduction, your marker should know exactly what your argument is going to be. The third sentence is going to be you're giving your 2 or 3 main points in summary. So that is why planning is so important, because as soon as you write the introduction, you actually have to know what you're going to say. So this would be from our example earlier, like the bravery and the intelligence and the good manners. Yes, so I'm going to summarize that into 1 or 2 sentences so the reader or the marker knows what is coming. And lastly is the linking or concluding sentence. So I'm going to sum it all up, but I'm going to get going with my essay now. So with regard to the body, we've spoken a lot about the body in our planning, and this is really helpful because now when you actually have to get to writing it, you just have to focus on your sentence structure and your vocabulary. If you follow the Peel method, like I've shown you with the planning, then it's super easy to just take all that information, take all the quotes and just integrate it into well-constructed sentences. And then moving on to the conclusion. In the conclusion, there are 3 things that you need to make sure that you include. So, number 1, you got to restate your argument. Yes, so constantly restate it. Think of yourself as a lawyer. Yes, so you are constantly reinforcing the whole time what your argument is, that this man is innocent, for example. You also have to remember to list your points again, and this is why vocabulary is so important and why I put vocabulary and synonyms in at the bottom of the slide in capital letters, because you have to know how to change up the words that you're using so it doesn't sound super repetitive and boring. And thirdly, you must remember to put a concluding reinforcement of your point of view. So yeah, vocabulary and synonyms, I cannot emphasize that enough. And with regard to literary essays, you can definitely plan for that by making, by using the dictionary in your planning notes, in your summaries, and by researching your characters and finding different words to use to describe them. Okay, so now there's some general tips. So the first one is check out rubrics in advance. So no matter what syllabus you're doing, you can go online and you can literally Google it, and you'll find for every single paper, you'll find a rubric for the essay. So you can see exactly what they are looking for. Another thing, which I did mention slightly before, but I'm going to re-mention it because it's super important, is to read the question. So read the topic and make sure you follow the word count and don't start talking about something that is completely unrelated, because that is very easy to do. The next thing is formal language. So this is pretty obvious, but some people seem to forget it. So you can't use like I've been saying this entire video. No contractions, no slang. This is an academic piece, so please don't use like I or me or my. No contractions, which is like can't, rather say cannot, and definitely no slang ever. Punctuation is also super important, so some people may forget this, and I'm often appalled at some of the punctuation of certain students, even in matric or in grade 10 or in 11. So please make sure to pay careful attention to punctuation. Don't make your sentences too long. Make sure you have a full stop in there. No comma splices allowed. Linking to punctuation is you hopefully going to be including a lot of quotes, and that means that you need to have inverted commas for these quotations. Yes, don't just put a quote in as your own words. Definitely make sure that you use inverted commas. Next thing is you have to underline the play or the novel title. So some teachers prefer it underlined, some teachers prefer it in inverted commas. Whatever their preference, you just have to find out, or otherwise my preference is underlining it because I think it's easier. So definitely make sure that you differentiate between the actual play and your writing. And this is especially important in a play like Hamlet, where Hamlet is the name of the protagonist and it also is the play. So you have to make sure that you underline the play or the novel title. Next thing is to integrate your quotes. So when I say use quotations, some people will be like, as this character said, dash, and then they do their quotation. No, you must integrate your quotes into your sentences. So if, for example, Sarah is brave, and I can put brave in inverted commas because that may be an actual direct quote. Yes, obviously yours will be longer. So, but it's integrated into my sentence. It's not just randomly standing there, and it's not like she said this, he said that. Yeah. All right, vocabulary, we've already discussed it. So try and vary that as much as you can. Another thing is to practice and ask your teacher to mark it. So some people are under the impression that their teacher do not want to help them, that they're lazy perhaps, I'm not sure. But definitely write essays, send it to your teacher. I'm sure, in my experience, teachers have always been super happy to mark it because it shows that you're really putting in effort and you're really trying. And if you have a tutor, definitely submit them like 5 million different essays to check, because their feedback is going to be so important to help you improve. Right, we're almost done. Another thing is to limit your time beforehand. So in an exam, obviously, you're not just going to have one literary essay to write. So make sure that you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to spend 5 minutes on planning and then 40 minutes to finish this essay. And try and keep to that as much as possible. Also try and use this in your preparation, right? So when you're writing your practice essays to submit to your teacher, make sure you set a timer. Try to limit your time. See where you're going wrong. Are you taking too long in planning? Are you taking too long in your introduction? So make sure that you limit your time so that in the exam, you're going to be all set. And then finally, try to proofread. So I would not recommend that you proofread during an exam straight after you've done your literary essay. I would recommend after everything in the entire paper is completed, go back to your literary essays and proofread it. Cross out any unnecessary words perhaps, put in some punctuation marks, and yeah, just carefully read it through. So I hope that you enjoyed that video and that you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.